Everyone, my name is Ed Cleveland, and today we're going to be working with one crystal singing bowl. Now, crystal singing bowls will keep the one particular note in that octave running. So the important part in working with one bowl is learning different ways to play the bowl. So, for example, a lot of times people will use the suede mallet. They will circle or rim the bowl with the suede mallet, and a lot of times it'll create more of a scratchy sound. And when you're going through the training, you're the one being retuned, so you're learning what you don't like, because that's just as important as learning what you like. And these kind of can become a little challenging because of all the scratchy sounds. Then they'll come with the rubber mounts. And a lot of times people will glong with the rubber mounts that they come with, and that over time can become a little thuddy. It makes a thud sound. So I don't use that. I like to use a larger mallet. We definitely don't glong with the larger mallet, but we have a glonger mallet, which is made with yarn. And this is not for rimming, it's just simply for gonging the mouth. So it works similar to working on the gong, like behind me, but this also works with a crystal bowl. What that does is this is giving you the pure sound of the bowl. Getting a mouth that's not too hard versus thud or the crisps. And sometimes these get hit a little too hard. There's that scratchy sound. This is okay sound. This is what I find the smoothest. With one bowl, you want to try to create certain simple beats and rhythms. So a lot of times I'll teach my students to work the inside of the bowl and work their four corners, and then it puts a little bit of timing between it. In other words, I'm doing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. When rimming, you can also 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the bowl is ramped up and it's energized, it's moving, so there's really no need to go back into it. It already has energy going. If you continue to go, the bowl can go very quickly out of its range. So I like to use what we call different decibel levels, where a first decibel is as quiet as you could play the bowl, so you can still hear it. Then the second decibel is a little bit higher, going up to the 4 different levels. Fifth being too high, when all of a sudden the bowl changes from that nice clean sound into something else. That something else is not really a good sound. So in keeping that, you can work a rhythm in different decibel levels. So in other words, you can start with the first decibel, go into the second, go into the third, go into the fourth, and then watch it decay from the fourth down to the third, down to the second, down to the first, and then pick it back up and bringing it slowly with control, meeting the sound where it's at, which takes skill. It's a skill level. So basically you're being nice and gentle, controlling the sound where it's at, and then slowly bring it up essence, what you're doing is you're applying a certain speed and pressure to the bowl. So we'd like to say speed, pressure, rotation. So if you want to stop the bowl, you just put more pressure on without any speed to it. So you can get the bowl going and control that first decibel. Any instrument you're playing, you want to have full control of it. So you can say in your mind, I'm at the first decibel, I'm at the second decibel, I'm at the third decibel, I'm at the fourth, I'm at the third, I'm at the second. Maybe like a second. So you can learn to work your gonging technique to allow it to lightly swing, because we're not hitting or striking the bowl. That's actually putting tension into the bowl. So when I see people hit the bowl, it's sending, even watching them, it kind of makes, and that doesn't really fall into the sound healing category. So a nice gentle. So you're working your technique that you could do that 100 times at that same decibel. Bring it into another decibel. So your own practice, I like to say perfect practice makes perfect, because you're working on a certain skill and keeping control of what you're doing. So once you have that you can create a certain sound, you can then, music is expressed between the silence between different notes. Well, there's silence in between sound and no sound. There's a little gift in there, and that's where the healing actually happens. So in working this, you can create a simple beat and rhythm by using the decibel levels and counting in between your strikes, or the tap and the touch, or what they would call the attack of the bowl, which is your skillful attack. Doesn't mean hard. So you can, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, keeping at a certain decibel level. Now, depending on the time of day, if it's morning, a person's brain might be a little bit slower, so you want to start off more gentle. So you can start with the lower decibel level and kind of draw them in. They just came into the room, you're facilitating this meditation, you're having them settle down and starting to listen to what the sounds are. Then you can slowly start going up decibel levels. And then when you finish, you can decline back down or descend or decay down back into that very soft finishing touch. In the evening time, if you go to do that, you may lose the person because you're working on entrainment or grabbing a hold of the brain. I like to say it's like we're fishing. You got the fishing line out there. You got them on the line. Now what do you do with it? If you pull too hard, you can lose them. Or if you go too slow, you can lose them. So at night, when the brain is busier, you can keep your beats faster, a little bit louder. You're kind of entraining the brain to hear the sounds. Then you start to decay or drop from your 4th decibel into your 3rd. You're maybe tapping it. You're using a quicker count: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're working your own rhythm as you're getting into it. Because in facilitating, we get excited. We want to play. We're helping people out. So sometimes we can go too loud and go too fast without realizing that we may be preventing them from going into a lower state of consciousness. So we want to tell a story and take the brain on a journey. So in the evening time, you're a little bit louder, you're a little bit faster. Once you have the brain entrained, so you may do that for, say, 5 minutes. Then start adding a little bit more space between. So instead of every 4, maybe sneak it out to 6. And maybe instead of going in the 4th decibel, you drop it down to the 3rd. And now you do that for another 5 minutes. Then you add a little bit more space and you count to 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as you're doing that and dropping the decibel levels down, or even keeping it there for a little while because you have a plan, you have a strategy, and we're using these numbers as actually a way to alter time. So when you start stretching time out, once you have them attuned or entrained to that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you bring it out to 6, then you bring it out to 8, then we keep going into the 4s. So we're going to jump to 12, and then we're going to go 16, and then we're going to go to 20. So basically, we're creating more time in between the strike, but the person's brain is still there wherever we are. And as you're adding more space, you're now altering time and space for you and for them. So in facilitating, you're also working with your own brain and you're working with the clock. So a lot of times people will do meditations and they do everything they know how to do, and they look at the clock and they still have 20 minutes to go. So what do? That's where people start to repeat things, start playing differently, and you'll kind of lose your whole theme or your strategy because you're trying to fill time now, which could actually make time go slower. So by playing the numbers game, it gives you something to do. And with the numbers, you can create all kinds of different directions with that. And that's the beauty of it, because it can work with how you're feeling. If you're feeling you need to be a little bit more perky, you can play that way using the numbers. Or if you need to settle down with them, because you're excited, you just set up, everything was going, and you got to calm down with it. So now you're playing in a way which actually increases the time and space, which helps you automatically, because you're trained as well, to slow down, put a little bit more time. Maybe listen to the room, lean back. How is the sound moving around the room? Coming back in, strike, lean back. So now you're adding a little bit of physical motion to what you're doing. So you're similar to like a Tai Chi or Qigong going on. And you're creating a simple beat and a rhythm that you slightly start to change. And that's the story you're telling for the brain of everyone that's participating. So that's kind of how you work with one bowl, because you're working with one singular sound through a gonging mouth. So if it, I like to say, if it takes 10 minutes to go out, it takes 10 minutes to come back. So if you did the gonging for a while and you had that one whole routine, and then you switch, and you kind of bridge. You're looking for a way to bridge the sound between the gonging, the time that you're using, and then you go to sneak in the rimming. Maybe you can gong a little bit while you're accompanying both techniques. Eventually putting the gonger mallet down, because now the gonging kind of keeps them a little bit higher in their state, because they're listening to it. It's like a little doorbell. Once that goes away and you're just focusing on the rimming part, the person can go even deeper, because the gonging is not snapping and bringing them back up. So now you still work your count wherever you are. You still work your ascending or your descending, or you use that to then change to maybe start to ascend again, slowly, waiting before you go back in to rim again, because the bowl is doing its work. So you use that as a count. And the person starts getting entrained to this sound. So now you're playing and you're working that decibel level with the decibel level or the count of the beat. musician Johnny Cage states that, you know, there's certain things that you can't change. And if you have outside noises, that becomes a musician that you need to play along with, because you can't change that. That's always going to be there. It's part of life. So therefore you learn to become a musician with outside sounds, or sounds that you cannot control. And you work on blending them in like a call and response. And as you do that, you'll get more proficient at it. And therefore, when a person in your class gets up to use the bathroom, or goes to open up a water bottle and they start making a little crunchy sound with the water bottle, and they put the bottle down, you can add a sound in that works with the sound of their water bottle, or the bathroom door opening and closing. So again, that's now a musician. It's a musician playing a note that's coming into the room that you're now being on the spot to work with. So that also brings up your creativity. This all comes into play with, again, your skill set, your level, your time and effort in the art of playing the crystal bowl. So again, crystal will have one particular note. This is a C in the 4th octave. It is a perfect pitch. There are 100 cents in every note, just like there's 100 pennies in every dollar. So in testing a bowl with like a tuner, a meter, you can find out where the bowl is in a particular note, the octave, how many cents it is it plus 20 cents, minus 20 cents, or does it reach a 0, which is perfect pitch. 432 hertz I found is about minus 24 cents. So people fall into working with those numbers. But when you have a bowl and you check it and you find the sound, you can then use that when you go to get a companion bowl, because you want to get another bowl that works with what you have. So you never really know what you're going to get over the internet. You may get this C4 and it sounds really good. You go to test it and it may be, let's say, plus 48 cents. It's 2 cents away from going into a D sharp. And then let's say you get a D sharp and it just happens to be minus 24 cents. It's going to sound like the same bowl, even though they're 2 different notes. So that's one, and that will create a dissonant sound. They'll start working in kind of being a little space odyssey. It'll kind of have this little dissonant sound, which musicians will not like, because that's saying that's out of tune. However, people on the spectrum actually enjoy that type of sound. So again, it depends on who your clients are, who you're working with, and what kind of sounds you want to make. Basically, you want to make clean, clear sounds with a good skill set, with timing, with rhythm, creating a simple beat, wave, or pattern, and you slightly adjust that. And that's how you provide a good quality sound meditation for your clients. This is also how you get to know your bowl, to work your own self-care with the bowl, to investigate your bowl, to check it out, to experience the sound. How long does it take for the decay rate to happen? So let's say you ramped it up to a 4, and you're counting. How many counts does it take for it to decline or descend or decay down into like a first decibel? Because you don't really want it to fully stop, because then people think that the meditation is over with. But if you let it decay down where it's almost going into like a first decibel, and then you pick it back up, you now want to pick it back up, but not go up sharp and go quickly. Whatever time it took to decay, that's how you want it to blossom back up. So now again, this is working your skill set, your pattern. You're becoming more mature as a singing bowl player, creating more quality sound, which is showing you're more professional. When you start to work towards bringing people back, that's when you can then shift from the rimming to slowly bridge the gap to start to glonging again. Eventually putting the glonging mallet down, the rimming mallet down, and just glonging, which is a little bit of a sharper sound. But again, still keeping your space and working them back in whatever direction you're going, depending on if it's a morning or an evening. And if it's afternoon, you're kind of working with where your energy is at, because you want to play in a way that is comforting to you, because that's what you're passing on to the listener. So, that's where you're bringing harmony. That's where you're finding these sounds that you love to do, and you're sharing them with others. And that's the gift and the beauty of it. So the gliding sound could be further apart that slowly comes back into being quicker. As it's being quicker, it's like you're bringing them back, and they're hearing it, and they're hearing the beat, and like, okay, I'm back in the room again. If you're doing it in the evening, and you want to fade out into nothing, you're working your technique down the decibel levels, eventually getting to the first decibel where you're just barely playing, and then you fade out into nothing. You let the bowl just decay all on its own, and then you give a certain amount of time for silence. And that's very important, because it also gives a person's body time to integrate with the work that was done. Very, very powerful. Silence is very powerful. This is the finishing of the technique. This can allow a person, if they're out on a journey, to gently, slowly come back into the room. And when that happens, there's a beautiful moment, because there's a shift in reality. Because you're listening to the bowls, you're following, because you were entrained, your brain was entrained to it, you're in a little story, and you'll realize that that is no longer playing, and then all of a sudden you start hearing the sounds of the room. And the sounds of the room will actually be louder than they were when you came in, because now your hearing is different, because you were in a sound meditation. So this way, those really soft sounds, a person may hear the clock down, they may hear the buzzing of a light, they may hear some street sound. So again, now there's a shift in reality, because they were into the bowl space, and then all of a sudden they're shifting, and now they're in the room, in the space of the room, and the sounds of the room. So again, that would be like a person is inhaling, and there's a pause at the top of breath before you start to exhale. And you're exhaling, and there's a pause on the exhale before you start to inhale. Again, those are pivoting points where you can have a chance of that shift in reality, being in two different realms, or so to speak, at the same time. So I hope you enjoyed this process of working with one crystal bowl. I'm going to have another videos that come out with 2 crystal bowls, 3, and working in different concerts. So again, my name is Ed Cleveland, working these classes and these meditations to help out everyone that I can, as this is my purpose here in life. So thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoy your day, and good luck with that working with your one bowl. Thank you very much. Have a great day.